Hello and welcome to the Weekly Outlook at xm.com. Next week, we'll get the jobs report for June out of the U.S., where investors will also be waiting for the ISM PMIs. In addition, the RBA will meet for its July policy decision. And over in Japan, could next week's data help turn the tide for the battered yen? I'm Maria Pachurdias, and joining me to discuss all this is lead investment analyst Rafi Boyadjian. So Rafi, let's start over in the U.S., where we'll get the non-farm payrolls report for June. Also, the ISM manufacturing and non-manufacturing PMIs will be out on Monday and Thursday, respectively, in addition to the minutes of the Fed's June policy meeting on Wednesday. What data will investors be watching most closely, and how might these figures impact the dollar?
Well, Maria, I think we can be certain that the non-farm payrolls report will attract the most attention. So what we're seeing in the markets right now is that investors are finally starting to come around to the Fed's communication that they do intend to tighten policy further this year, potentially 2 more times. And we're seeing, market expectations in Fed fund futures shift towards that. So we've already seen a significant retracement in the dollar following, it started the month of June on the back foot. So we've already seen quite a significant movement there. As we hear, Powell has actually made a number of public appearances since that June decision. And we're finally starting to see investors kind of maybe be more convinced that the Fed isn't done yet with any rate increases, but the Fed isn't decided, at least they're not decided on the timing of each of those rate increases. So there's this question mark whether are they going to raise rates again in July, or is it going to be later in September, maybe even the next hike might not come until the early November decision. And a lot of that will probably be riding on the data. We've got the jobs report, of course. The last month was pretty strong. We could see potential slowdown for the month of June. The forecasts they're stuck around to the 200K figure, and again for June, most analysts expect non-farm payrolls to have risen by around 200,000. What's interesting though is that we've been seeing the jobless rate tick up a little bit. So even if we were to get a solid number of an increase in payrolls, if the jobless rate also continues to tick higher, then that might suggest that maybe things are slowing down in the labor market. Also, wage growth will be important too, but it's quite possible that we might not get a clear sense of where things stand with the jobs report. So clearly, the ISM PMI surveys will be very important as well to see, these are of course somewhat more forward-looking. They give us indication of, whether businesses are intending to continue to hire more or less people, what prices are they charging. So all of this will be very important to get some kind of an indication what the Fed is likely to do in July. So clearly a strong set of data would bolster expectations of a July rate hike. But with the dollar, as I said, it's already retraced quite a bit of its June losses. So maybe the potential gains might be limited even in the face of fairly upbeat data.
Okay, moving over to Australia now. The RBA will meet on Tuesday for its July policy decision. Policymakers hiked rates back in May and June. Do you think we're likely to see a third hike now?
Well, it's probably going to be a close call for the RBA. We saw in the minutes that the last decision was finely balanced, and things are looking finely balanced again for the July decision, because we did get a very strong jobs report last time out of Australia, but then most recently we got the monthly consumer price index, which actually fell to 5.6%. That's a multi-month low. Things are clearly improving on the inflation front in Australia, at least for the time being. The last set of PMIs, the flash PMIs for June, were somewhat soft, a little bit worrying. It depends on whether or not the RBA is going to put more weight on the employment data or more weight on the inflation data. But given that they did hike twice in a row, maybe they can afford to stay on hold for one meeting and then wait to see whether or not there's going to be continued strength in the labor market before hiking again. So it's possible that when it comes to the Australian dollar, we might not see a huge response there. At the very least, though, the RBA will probably keep the door wide open for further rate increases, even if they do keep things on hold. So the RBA, probably there's limited downside there, maybe some gains, especially if you were to get some positive PMI numbers out of China as well. So that will be fairly significant for the Aussie too, given all the concerns we're getting about the Chinese economic recovery.
And finally, over in Japan, the Bank of Japan is still refusing to change its policy course. Can you tell us a bit about the economic situation there and what, if anything, could provide some relief for the struggling yen?
Well, there's a lot of actually positive things to say about the Japanese economy right now. Seems to be doing fairly well. We've got the Tankan quarterly business survey coming out on Monday. And the forecasts are basically suggest that businesses will be more confident about the upcoming quarter. And so if that outlook is shared across the Japanese business, both among manufacturing, non-manufacturing, large and small businesses, that would really give us good idea that things are really on the right path as far as the Japanese economy is concerned. Inflation, though, does appear to be leveling off, and that's one of the things why the Bank of Japan is hesitating about starting to tighten policy, because they want to see sustainable inflation, and to get sustainable inflation, they would have to get higher wage growth. And on Friday, we will be getting some wage growth data out of Japan. So maybe if we see a pickup there, that could potentially heighten speculation of a policy shift from the BOJ as early as the July decision. For now, though, markets are believing the BOJ when it says that it doesn't intend on changing policy anytime soon, and that's why we're seeing the yen come under such pressure. But maybe if we get overall everything kind of is looking rather rosy next week from Japanese data, and we see some heightened speculation of an early policy shift, maybe the yen might be due for a positive correction.
Rafi, thanks so much. And thanks for joining us at xm.com for this weekly outlook.